Ooh, I'm on the time limit. Okay.
You're on the timeline.
No, timeline. Like, I was looking at the time. Like, I guess I use so much memory and delete stuff after it. 53 minutes. That's fine. That's where it needs to cut off. Yeah, that's a good timeline on it.
53 minutes?
Yeah, 53 minutes.
So we're doing the Alien episode, and this is the start of
the real.
This is the start of they are real, 100%. This is the start of our October series where we're talking about spooky shit.
Llama Party.
Llama Party.
I was trying to do the X-Files. I was trying to do the X-Files thing. Llama Party.
So you read my mind because I was gonna like put that over the intro instead of like the song that we know.
Oh really?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna do for this one. I am a big fan of the Alien thing. Like somewhere whenever I was in college, I was like taking my prereqs like in the early stages of it. Mm-hmm. And when you're taking prereqs, if you're a decently smart person, which I consider myself a decently smart person, you don't have to put a lot of effort into the classes. You study a little bit and you're good. Mm-hmm. So I ended up with a lot of free time. And I was just bored at our apartment when it was just like the first Plano apartment with me and Zaylin.
Okay.
And he was asleep at this time because it was like 5 or 6 in the morning or something. And I just started looking up Area 51 UFO type shit on YouTube, right? And that's where I got introduced to it. And I found like this videos of this guy named Dr. Dan Burish, who claimed to work at Area 51 with an alien that he said was a J-Rod. That was what they called it. Oh. His whole deal is like, he was obviously a microbiologist. He was using terms that only a microbiologist would know. And he was smart enough to string it together in a way that made him seem like a microbiologist, but the rest of it is what I don't know about. But his supposed experience at Area 51 with the J-Rod, as he called it, was they were future humans.
J-Rod sounds like a basketball player. Like, J-Rod? What's up, J-Rod?
It had something to do with, like, the symbols that species used to identify their planet. It was like a J shape and then a rod shape and then the government.
He was trying to tell him, like, all right, so this is where my planet is. All right, you got to hook it. You got to hook it to the right on this Milky Way, right? Light speed.
That's the J.
All right, and right to the rod. All right, that's how. And it's like probably giving directions. Like you primitive apes can't understand.
Yeah, but apparently the J-Rod had some kind of disease, and he was hired on to like help try to fix that.
J-Rod got space AIDS.
Yeah, space AIDS
or space COVID.
And it was space COVID. It was future humans, right? And they were like, he went into this crazy thing where there was like different timelines. Like some of the humans that we didn't learn our lesson and we nuked ourselves into oblivion became the J-Rods, and they were like, he didn't say lizard people, but he said like kind of reptilian looking, like they had like scaly skin, and they were like
OG black people,
the big black eyes and the big head and that kind of thing. And then different timelines of humans that did learn their lesson became the Nordics, blonde white people, really tall blonde white people.
Yeah, white people learned the lesson. Of course they did.
Yeah, of course they did. Right. He tells this like intricate story about like one time he went into Clean Sphere. They had to keep it in Clean Sphere, which is like a sealed off hermetic chamber that was free from bacteria and stuff. And the J-Rod jumped on his chest, like. And the people on the outside of the Clean Sphere thought it was attacking him, but realistically it was like communicating with him telepathically and like letting him in on all this information about their world and what the deal is, you know, like, because they're no longer on Earth at this point.
Oh, like, yo, we about to link.
Yeah, they linked telepathically, and he like let him in on all this shit because like future humans no longer on Earth. We blow Earth up, use all of its resources. It's done.
We treat it like Mars.
Yeah, we go somewhere else, right? And that's where the Nordics and the J-Rods live in different timelines. So that was like my introduction to the alien thing. And then I found like Secure Team, which was a YouTube channel that used to feature interesting UFO footage and stuff like that. And then that guy went crazy, and I don't know if he beat his wife or something, but I know he got arrested, and then he took all his YouTube videos down, and yeah, but... Ever since then, it's like been a very interesting thing, and I don't ever like consider it blatantly true.
Bob Lazar.
Oh, Bob Lazar is the guy.
I feel like
he's the guy.
Bob Lazar has enough where he hasn't like. For me, from what I've seen of Bob Lazar, there's no reason for me not to trust that guy.
he's a weird case in that, like, your bullshit meter doesn't go off at all with him. Like, you're like, this guy knows what he's talking about. Mm-hmm. He's told the same story since 1989, the year I was born.
His memory's too good, and that's the only thing that's really, like, weird about it. His memory is too good. He's too on point.
Well, he doesn't, like, say anything that you would really forget with age. Because he didn't know a lot of different shit that, like, goes on in the alien conspiracy circles, right? Mm-hmm. He is very obviously a propulsion specialist. He's a scientist. Mm-hmm. He still does that kind of shit to this day. He works at a chemistry lab.
I think we need to talk, and, like, to Bob Lazar, the things that makes Bob Lazar is incredible is, like, the one main thing was he's talked about Element 115.
Yeah.
And
he mentioned that in 89.
Now, Element 115 was not created. It was created 5 years ago?
It was like 5 years ago that someone in Germany made an isotope of it that remained stable for like 2 seconds or something.
Still very radiated. But Bob Lazar talked about 115. Like, this was not an element, right? Like, this wasn't a thing, but he talked about it, right?
No, everyone said he was full of shit because, like, he mentioned this element that the crafts used for fuel. Mm-hmm. In 89, I want to remind everyone, 31 years ago.
Remember, the thing about the Germany one that had it, it was synthetically made.
Yeah.
But you can probably infer that what they had, or the shit was made out of it, wasn't synthetically made. Mm-mm. Right? And what made this ship is, like, so everything when it comes to us, like, traveling, we only go forward and upward, or propulsion.
Yeah.
This flight doesn't do any of that. The way it lifts off is it suspends the gravity around.
The way he explained it was that it generates its own gravitational field, right? Mm-hmm. So it makes heavier gravity at the front of the craft and less gravity at the back of the craft. So you're literally, like, if you think about the air, space-time, as a fabric, like a solid fabric, it's like putting a bowling ball on your bed and it'll, like, roll towards the center point, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you're bending the front and lifting the back, and the craft just kind of, like, rides that
But fabric. It's doing that with gravity.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, the element, what's special about it bends light, so it makes it invisible whenever it wants.
Yeah, he said, like, if you were standing directly underneath it and looking up at it, you wouldn't see it because it's, like, bending the light around
It's bending the light. Yeah. And it's controlled telepathically, mentally.
Yeah, right? He said there was, like, nothing inside of those crafts that you would perceive as, like, controls.
And as he said, he didn't understand how it was made. Like, he couldn't, like, see, like, there was no bolts, anything. And as technology has progressed, now, he was saying this back in 89, and as he said now, it was probably 3D printed. Now, like, Bob Lazar is not a dumb person, but he could not grasp the concept of 3D printing.
No, but what he was describing back in 89, like, we could totally see today as, like, oh, that was probably, like, 3D printed.
Yes.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. Like, these are things he was saying, and you can date back him saying this stuff, right?
And by the way, for anyone who doesn't know, Bob Lazar is the reason we know that Area 51 is a thing.
That's very true.
Like, there was no concept of that, and he came out in 89 and told his story and whistle-blew about it, and that's the reason why we know it's a thing.
And apparently, out of everything that was ransacked and destroyed and everything else, you don't get the full video of him taking some of the material 115 and showing it bending light.
No, like, they do in the documentary. It's on Netflix. It's called Bob Lazar and
You don't
UFOs.
get the full video, though.
Or Bob Lazar and Flying Saucers is what it's called. He all but hints that he stole some Element 115 from S4, actually. We shouldn't say Area 51. S4 is a specific site within Area 51.
Where he said it was, but remember, there was also places where he said, though they said there wasn't bases at. Yeah. And later found it was.
Yeah. But the documentary kind of, like, hints at it, that he might have stolen it, but it doesn't, like, come out right out and say it.
Yeah.
That's a guy that I give a lot of credence to. And not necessarily because I know that I'm not going to, like, boldly claim that, like, yeah, dude, they're alien saucers, but, like, whatever that guy experienced was very real to him.
Yes.
And they at least constructed it in some kind of way. You know what I'm saying?
Just calling out the element and what it can do and things of that nature.
Yeah.
Right?
So far ahead, like, it was not added to the periodic table until 5 years ago. And he was in 89 saying that this is a thing, this is what these crafts run on, yada, yada,
Now,
yada.
when we talk about aliens and things claiming, it's very interesting when we talk about old religions. you can really infer there were aliens. And a lot of people don't want to do that. And one thing I tell people all the time, if you want to talk alien talk and you want to get into it, then I was like, well, Jesus was clearly an alien. Yeah. Right? And nobody wants to take it. And I was like, all right, let's take Mary, right? His mom, right? She was impregnated by the Holy Ghost, Holy Spirit, whatever you want to say it. Light comes down, everything. She was pregnant the next day. She was anally probed a baby inside of her.
Anally probed, as if that would like get her pregnant. She was probed.
Okay, do you know the anally probe don't get you pregnant?
I know that it would have to be vaginally for a human to get pregnant with it.
You don't know how alien technology works. So if an alien want to put something up your ass and get you pregnant, all right then.
No, like that coincides with like something that was in the news earlier this week with like old press and stuff. With Tom DeLonge said he believes that UFOs were present at the birth of Christ.
Oh yeah.
What the North Star was. He believes that's what the North Star was.
This is what I was talking about with the whole pregnancy with the whole baby and Jesus have alien. We think aliens look so much different than us. And we think aliens are on the same timeline as us, right? If you throw these two things out, that aliens could be also humans per se, like just like us from a different place or a different time. You have Jesus, right? Mm-hmm. And, he takes all this punishment, he heals back, he leaves. How did Jesus leave and go to heaven?
Tractor beam.
And he goes up. Right?
Yeah.
They even state that times that this big ball light talks to Jesus. They even talks about holograms, if you will. These people that were dead talk to Jesus.
We could go back further, like to David. Like David was in the Bible. He was supposedly confronted by some kind of chariot. It's described in the Bible as a chariot that came from the heavens, and it was made of fire, and it spoke to him. Like, what was that?
We can even go further to Adam and Eve. You want to talk about real aliens? They don't refer to him as Satan or the devil. They say the lizard.
Yeah. Lizard people.
They literally say the lizard, the serpent. They do not state it was the devil. You just infer that.
But this is like also, we can keep going backwards into like ancient alien stuff. We can go to
Egyptian.
Yeah.
Right?
Where like the Sumerians, how did the Sumerians know the structure of the universe? Or not the universe, but like our solar system?
Yeah. How did they already have, like, how did they know that? How did
they did not have tools to, like, look at that kind of thing, but, like, if you look at the shit they carved into stone, like, they knew our solar system exactly as it was before Europeans did, because Europeans had this very, like, Earth-centric model of the universe, right, where everything's circled around the Earth.
Very white of them.
Yes, very white of them. But, like, the Sumerians had it figured out long before that. Their carvings, like, depicted how it is. Like, everything revolves around the sun.
How did they get all that? Well, even you go to, like, all the Egyptian stuff and everything, like, there's these objects we still haven't described. And some look like helicopters, some look like spaceships, all right there.
Yeah, like, in their hieroglyphs, like, there are modern-looking helicopters and other craft that probably didn't exist back
even
then.
In the thing where I was trying to tell you, it was like Portugal or Puerto Rico. I get confused. One of the P countries where they had like 30,000 people saw this, like they call it like the sun. This ball of light came down and spoke to 30,000 people. Right? Like mentally talk to them. Like these things across the world that's happened. The reason this one thing where it was I think it was in Texas where this alien died. This is like way back. It's like 1900. But they still had newspaper, right? And they gave a funeral to this alien that died and buried and everything. And these people tried to look it up. And the government, they called and like, hey, y'all know this burial ground here. We're going to check it out. And the government, like, overnight got rid of it. They're like, yeah, you can see anything.
Yeah.
Ain't no aliens.
That's like their MO, right? And I would be remiss if I didn't mention Roswell.
Yeah, Roswell, New Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, Roswell happened. There was some kind of crash there. And then they put out a newspaper article nationally that said flying saucer recovered from crash in Roswell, New Mexico. And then the next day the military redacted it and said, oh no, it was just a weather balloon.
Right?
Yeah.
And that was the thing, like alien, like out of nowhere, the government became serious about aliens. It wasn't always serious about this thing.
All right, so like weird things happened after World War II. And that's a whole...
Hitler, like, it's crazy. Like, so many things revolve around, like, what Hitler did he's just that one
The Vril
point.
Society?
Oh, tall whites Vril. Hitler is one of those people, like, in history, he's almost like a Jesus figure. Like, after Hitler, everything changed. Kind of like Jesus. After Jesus, everything changed.
He was a pivotal point in history.
Point. Yeah. Like, so many things revolve after Hitler, and there's so many talking points about it.
He did so many things that, like, no other human would be able to do.
He accomplished... It's crazy.
All right, like, this podcast in no way condones Nazism. Nazism is bad. Punch your local Nazi. Feel free to share that
Talk
message.
shit, get hit.
Yeah. But if we're talking about, like, Hitler in the historical perspective, like what he did for Germany following World War I, it's crazy. It's astronomical.
That's why they killed MLK. He was going to do that for America, for black people.
Probably, yeah.
He was on the same... People get so mad when I compared it. You used to get so mad when I used to compare it. But it makes more sense. Like, he had, like...
Because, like, you can look at post-World War I Germany. They were defeated in World War One, and they were...
Hitler was not about no more L's. He was like, no. Last L I'm going to take.
Yeah. They were stripped of all of their basic rights as a country. They were not allowed to have a military. They were stripped of all of their economic resources.
When they separated into multiple other countries and then put other leaders in place?
Yeah, they, like, divided, like, Austria got a piece of
Yugoslavia,
it. I think Poland got a part of it.
Yeah, it was like all these... like Germany was way bigger, and then multiple countries came of it.
Yeah, they, like, divided it afterwards. Anyways, here comes Hitler. In a matter of a couple years, it wasn't even a few, it was a couple. Like, after he was elected.
Yeah, it wasn't that long after.
Germany rose to be, like, one of the greatest superpowers in the world.
Super fast. Like, abnormally quick on how powerful he got.
They went from, like, paying the equivalent of $200 American for a piece of bread to being, like, this huge superpower, excess amounts of money, rebuilding a military against what was the thing at the time. It wasn't the UN. It was, what was that WWE stable that had, like, Rusev and
No, not United. I went blank.
Anyways, the predecessor to the UN.
Yeah, the predecessor.
Like, against their wishes, he rebuilt their military completely and was a world power. Germany is not that big a place. They took over most of Europe. Like, the shit he accomplished while
teamed up with only 2 other countries.
Yeah.
Only teamed up with 2 others.
Yeah, well, 3 depending on what period of time you're talking about.
What other country?
Because
other than Italy and Japan?
They were buddies with Russia for the first half.
Oh yeah, and then it was like, yeah, Russia.
And then they said, we hate communism, so we're going to attack Russia.
So funny. That is so funny to me. How they was just like, yeah, we're not commies. Like, that's just so funny.
They're like, fuck communists. We're going to wage a war on the Eastern Front whenever we already have a war against France and England on the Western Front.
You know how crazy badass you have to be? Like,
well, he had these, like, delusions of grandeur that he was destined to rule the world.
Yeah, but he wasn't really off that much.
He was close. We got so close to speaking German, dude.
And then,
so close.
He was ahead of his time in so much technology. Like, the level of technology he was ahead of is kind of ridiculous. Like, people don't talk about
I've told you about Die Glocke, right? Die Glocke was this piece of military equipment that the Germans built. You can find all the plans for it. There are, like, thousands of eyewitnesses that saw this thing operational, but the actual thing itself doesn't exist. Like, they couldn't find it after the war. Die Glocke in German means the bell. It was a bell-shaped craft that operated on anti-gravity technology, and it apparently could travel through time. Like, there are a bunch of Jewish prisoners who helped, like, build this thing that said, like, yeah, we saw it operate several times. But after the war, it was just nowhere to be found.
Yo. What?
Yeah. And a lot of people think that, like, Germany had help from aliens because they,
tall white Vrils?
Yeah, the Vril Society, right? A lot of people don't know about the Vril Society, but this is not a conspiracy theory. This is, like, a factual thing.
That woman.
Hitler had a covenant of witches called the Vril Society that he would go to consult about his plans and to give him advice.
It was a specific woman that was, like, ahead of it. Really beautiful
there was
woman.
a leader for it, sure.
It was that one beautiful, like, but she was a pivotal point.
Yeah. They apparently like took really strong psychedelics and got communications from interdimensional aliens.
Oh, is this why MK Ultra?
This is the conspiracy theory side of it, right? They all took psychedelics and got advice from interdimensional aliens, and then would pass that off to Hitler. Like, this is how you build the V2 rocket, because like that alone was way ahead of its time. The V2 rocket, right?
Damn.
That's why we recruited all of their scientists at the end of the war.
Is that how they get the jet planes too?
Yeah.
Because jet planes wasn't a thing either.
No, Germany was like so far ahead of everything. Like, it's no wonder why people think that aliens helped them.
Yeah. Well, it just doesn't, like, something doesn't add up, like how like all these points just helped out Hitler, and he just like there were like literally like a no shit country. It's like if Canada was just like, yeah, we're gonna rock your shit. It's literally like if Canada just stepped up.
All right, Canada.
Right? Like if Canada is like, okay, we won things. And you're just like, oh, because that's what Germany was. It wasn't anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. They were like they were worse than Canada because like they were economically crippled following the First World War.
Depression and everything.
Yeah.
And you tell me like this one man united, that's scary. Like people like that are very scary.
It's scary. But like, you know, when you're in grade school, you say, how can this kind of thing happen? And you're watching it now. So
it's people. Hitler's a very bizarre man. This is why I always talk about Kanye West, man. That when you have that type of like delusion of grandeur and charisma, you can do some scary shit.
Oh, absolutely. Like, people are waiting to be led.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Yeah, they're waiting to be led.
Just waiting to be led. But like the whole like alien conspiracy thing is so crazy when you really think about like all these like different concepts with it, and like the whole Antarctica, and like the Vatican's very mysterious.
Operation High Jump was a operation where, following World War II, the U.S. Navy was deployed to Antarctica to look for Navy or Nazi bases down there, because they supposedly had Nazi bases. Now, a lot of the eyewitness accounts from the crew that was on staff said that they took a big ship down there, like a Navy destroyer, and once they got to Antarctica, UFOs came out and attacked them. And that adds to the whole, like, Nazi alien thing, right? So they have Nazi bases down there, and then the aliens came out and attacked them whenever they went down there. That's all. That's, again.
They say aliens also have this big thing where, like, wherever military bases are, you see a lot of alien activity. Also, earthquake activity is somewhat aliens. And also, like, airplane pilots be just seeing aliens all the time. It's normal. Like, yeah.
In World War II, again, to call back to World War II, like, the fighter pilots saw these fireballs that would interact with their planes in the sky. And they would like play chicken with the planes in World War II. And they would like get 5 feet from the plane and then disappear, and they'd be somewhere else. They called them Foo Fighters, which is where the band gets their name. And because Foo is like French for fire, like firefighters, they look like fireballs. Which is what most of the sightings nowadays are. Like when Secure Team was a thing, and he was posting like weekly videos of people would submit UFO sighting videos to him, and he would just put them up on his channel. It's mostly just like these balls of light that do weird things. Like people, like there'll be a sighting in a city, right? Which is why I believe like something's going on. I don't know what it is. I can't even pretend to imagine what it is. But thousands of people see these things happen on a regular basis. And it'll be like fireballs in the sky, and they'll take geometric shapes, and they'll reproduce. There'll be like more of them pop up out of nowhere. Other ones will disappear. And then they'll take weird geometric shapes, and they'll just like go somewhere.
The Hellzone Grenade by Piccolo.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's the Hellzone Grenade. But no, like so many people see these things on such a regular basis now. Like I can't ignore it and say that like all of these people are crazy. They're not.
That's
all
what I'm
crazy.
saying. Like you see once like a certain amount of people, and that's why I feel like it's weird. Like traveling outside the country and like understanding how other people think is so important, because like in America we are so caught into like we just deem everything as crazy, right? Like we have this like very watered down version, but like of everything, like medicine, workings, how the brain works. But even though our history shows so much, like the undeniable proof of how much our history shows of all these other things, right? Like aliens, psychics, these extra abilities, right?
Yeah.
And we just, and like that's why it's like it comes like, if you think about a couple years ago, even with you, like you denied so much of it, but now you're just like, there's something else. Like you can't even like there's so much, and we say conspiracy, but there's so much evidence, there's so much talking about it that this all just can't be movies.
No.
Right? Like there's just so much to it. And like that's like growing up and like we call it critical thinking. Oh, that can't be it. And then we're just like, no.
And I'm real bad about thinking everything is nuts and bolts. Because of my education in science, I tend to think of everything as nuts and bolts. But like
our education system does that though. Like it tries to make everything seem like that.
But you can't like sum everything up to nuts and bolts. You just can't.
Well, the whole nuts and bolts is just configured in a different way.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's the thing. Like we just think we're so set and like how because America just is like isolated. And that's the thing bad about America. Like other countries is so different. Everybody's more spiritual. Everybody's like kind of more open to aliens. And it's very weird. Like if you ever just talk to somebody outside the country.
Well, if you want like my take on it or my opinion about the matter, like
white-splain it.
White-splain it. Is that what I'm doing?
Yeah, white-splain it.
Sorry. I didn't mean to. But no, like if you just consider the sheer number of planets that exist that we've found out about, that we like statically know exist, there are like tens of millions. It's impossible, given the number that exists, that we're the only intelligent thing out there.
Yeah.
It's not realistic.
Like how, like, in this thing, like, there's life in all different planets. Like, you can reasonably say, like, probably every planet has some type of, like, microorganism life, right?
Yeah.
But to only think, like, like, this intelligent beings are the only one, right?
That we're in.
Right? Like, we're so limited, like, we can't adapt or there are other ways we can't live, right?
And I think, like, life must be very casually normal, is how I think. Like, if it happens on this planet, we can't, like, just sit around and say, because we feel special, that we have the certain ingredients and yada, yada, yada. But we found that life perseveres anywhere. There are microorganisms that exist in the mouth of volcanoes, that exist in Antarctica, in the coldest regions on Earth.
Hell, they found water in Mars, so that suggested that maybe there could be life in Mars.
Yeah, like,
right?
If anything, we know that like life will persist wherever the fuck it is at.
It's part of nature, the natural order.
Yeah.
Right? Like not like life adapts in some which way or form.
Yeah, it'll figure it out.
It will figure it out. And also to just limit, right? And that's the thing, like we are so, like when it comes to alien talk and conspiracy, the only reason we call it conspiracy because we limit it, right?
Yeah.
We limit it because we feel like you can't.
Well, you know that term was like coined by the CIA to discredit people who were questioning what they were doing.
Why didn't we say that at the beginning of the other one?
I don't know.
I think that's how we should have led.
Yeah.
We should have led.
Yeah, that term was literally coined by the CIA when people started questioning what they were doing.
See, but
to
even
discredit
like,
people.
but see, even right there, like us just like saying that right there, like then we should just question it right there. Like, oh, that was coined right there, and that's what I'm just saying. Like we limit what our brain can do, what humans can do. You know, we limit what we see. Like, you know, and it's so weird. Like, it's just weird to me. Like, how can we come from cultures that believed in all these powerful gods, having all these abilities, all these creatures, and we just chalk it up, oh, those are just fairy tales.
Well, that's what I get at with, like, the religious people saying that the alien thing is absurd. It's like, I'm not a religious guy. I don't believe in gods or anything.
Yet.
Until Kanye ascends. Either way, but like
Hitler ascended.
Those people like will quickly discredit the idea of aliens.
Hitler got blonde hair, blue eyes, flying around, Super Saiyan.
Super Saiyan flying around.
Yeah.
But isn't that a more logical explanation for the things that the ancient people saw and thought to write down in these texts?
Yeah, I mean,
look at the whole theory of the Nephilim. Like that giants existed amongst us, like in very early times. Like, would that not be something from somewhere else?
That's true.
You know, Like, what is the term they use? The A word. A-K... Anunnaki.
Oh yeah, the Anunnaki.
Yeah, that's like the explanation for all like the early religions was like there were literally other civilizations interacting with us and like passing themselves off as gods to push our progression in a specific direction.
But something changed.
Like Dan Fravor, dude. I don't know if his name is Dan. I could be wrong about that.
Mr. Fravor.
Mr. Fravor is the pilot who interacted with that Tic Tac UFO that the footage became really popular about 2 years ago. And that was
wild.
Credit to Tom DeLonge. We all thought he was crazy for quitting Blink to work on aliens. But apparently, like, they're the real deal. He has, like, former heads of intelligence working with him. Shit like that. And they put those videos out. It was because they went ahead and leaked those videos that the Navy had to be like, yeah, those are our videos. We've been using your tax dollars to study UFOs. They're real. We don't know what they are. We can't catch them. So that's all we know. You know? But Fravor was the pilot who engaged with this thing. Whatever it was. It was a tic-tac shaped UFO. It was like floating over the water. They picked it up on radar. He said, hey, can I engage that? And they were like, well, fuck yeah, it's in our airspace. It's not supposed to be there.
Hell yeah, this is America.
Yeah. Engage that shit, right? And he would, like, fly at it, and from his description of it, like, it would, like, almost turn, the nose of it would turn and look at him, like, acknowledging that he was there. Wait till it got, like, really close to him, and then it would, like, zip, I'm over here now. And he would keep going, circle back around, try to engage it again, and it just played with him. And he said sometimes it would go from like the edge of the atmosphere, and then it would dive down in a single second, underneath the water. And then it would zip back up to the top of the atmosphere and just play with them. Like, this is
footage, right? This
is the footage, and this is a U.S. military pilot. This is a man of, like, he's well respected in his field. He's not a crazy person. Describing
still hasn't been deemed as crazy. Like,
no,
he's still very.
No, he's very well respected, and he's describing this, and like, what is that? Like, how do you like look at something like that and just be like, made up? It was in the national news.
Yeah, that's just wild.
You know?
That's what I'm saying. Like, we read off, like, and the media is such a powerful form. And when it comes to conspiracies and aliens and everything like that, we normalize a lot of things and discredit it using the media. Right? Like, media is one of the strongest, like, it's one of the strongest entities, right, to take away. Yeah. Which always interests me. China talks bad about the U.S. and its media.
But that's all they are, is like state-run media.
They are. But they talk bad about how U.S. does the media.
They do the same thing, but like way more severely. Just saying.
It's true. It's just it's so like there's more out there, and you can't like.
If you want my take on like what I think is going on, I think that some other civilization is coming here, and they're just like pulling resources from the planet. Is what I think. I think they come here and they like mine certain minerals and resources that they need, and they get the fuck out.
It could be that, or we could be going to a certain direction, right? And we say there's one civilization. I think we shouldn't rule out. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. I think saying there's one is still limiting it, right? Like, because the thing is, like, Russia's very secretive.
Yep. But they have like the government didn't even unveil this. It was like a former KGB guy. That was talking to some journalist over here, and he was telling these stories, and it's very similar to the stories that the U.S. government has, that they've since declassified. Public knowledge, again, that no one pays attention to, but they're very similar stories, like over their nuclear bases or whatever. And, like, you'll have a nuclear base where all your nukes are stored, they're just waiting for some guy in a tower somewhere to, like, hit the command.
Yeah.
You're going here. Whatever. These crafts will hover over them for like 6 to 12 hours. Just hovering. They'll try to communicate with it. It will not communicate. And then it'll randomly, some signal from that craft will turn all the nukes on.
Oh yeah, I was looking at that. I was looking at that the other day because that happened in the U.S. about how our nukes just came on. Now they're off.
Yeah, they'll activate the nukes. They'll be getting ready to fire off, and then they'll shut everything down. It's almost like a big dick move to be like, we know this shit better than y'all do.
I remember that happened straight up because that happened in the U.S. Like I was watching, it was like Hangar 1 or something, and they talked about it. And it's like, and this is like been common knowledge. Like, yeah, that happened. We had to call the president. Yeah, and then they're like, it's okay, it's a malfunction, and you can't tell the president like, yeah, it was just a malfunction on nukes. Malfunction on what?
Speaking of presidents and aliens, did you know that
Nixon?
No, Bill Clinton was like blatantly denied access to this.
What do you mean?
Bill and Hillary have like always been UFO interested people, and apparently, according to John Podesta, this was part of the shit that was leaked by WikiLeaks. The first thing Bill Clinton did whenever he got into the office was like he called the head of the Pentagon and said, "I want to know everything that you guys have been doing at Area 51 and everything about the UFO topic." And whoever he had on the phone said, "Sir, you do not have a need to know," and hung up on him.
Hillary's like, what did he say? He hung up on me. You're the president. I know.
What do I do now?
What do I do?
I've already called him.
Looking at Gore like, I don't fucking know. Like,
and that's the thing. Like, there are certain military bases and certain pieces of information that the president doesn't have access to. You have to be alive for her to get those things. The president is a temporary employee.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not a 5-star or 4 or 5-star general, whatever the ranking is, I don't know what the ranking is. If you're not that guy, like, you don't get to know those things.
Even then, most likely, the people that would know is somebody that you never heard of. Also, what I heard about the Pentagon was, if you, like, capture somebody from the Pentagon, or question somebody from the Pentagon, they only know about that area. There's not actually a person that knows every part.
Yeah.
They only know specific parts.
This is back to Bob Lazar. Like, he talks about this. Tom DeLonge talked about this. Whenever he started doing, like, his To the Stars thing, he was like, that's where my company came in, was like, I knew all of these different pieces of government, only knew one thing. Like, guys working out at S4 and Area 51 and shit, like, if they were working on this kind of stuff, there were propulsion guys that worked on the craft. There were biology guys that worked on the bodies if there were bodies recovered, but they are not allowed to communicate with each other at all. Like, everything is very compartmentalized, separated from each other. He said, what I did with my company was I took all those different stovepipes, those compartments, and I linked them together. I said, I grabbed all these people that worked in these areas and said, you guys talk about what you experienced, and let's figure this thing out.
And then he added everything up.
Yeah. Which is interesting.
Really wild and very, like, but, like, everybody was really shocked because, like, he did it in such a way. It was like, how did you do this? You know?
Yeah.
Because apparently, like, they'll put in certain lies for certain people. That's how they can find out who said what.
Oh, they've done it 1,000 times. Like literally like the Tom DeLonge thing, which is why I'm not 100% convinced on that yet, is they've done this before. They've pulled in some kind of pop icon figure into the circle and planted a bunch of misinformation and made them look like an idiot in the end. Like, they've done that before. But
that's why I have to, like, Bob Lazar seems like that one person. So if they did that, anything that goes against Bob Lazar, like, if it didn't add up with Bob Lazar, something would have to be off. So so the stuff, but then at the same time, like, if it added up too much to Bob Lazar, then it could seem like, you know.
Yeah.
Which, like, I just hope we go forward where it's like they release this information more. But that's why I feel like traveling around the world, you understand more things. And for what I was saying with Russia is the biggest country, and Russia has a lot of space that's not used, right? Like, they don't use all the play. I feel like if anywhere aliens gonna be, they up in the cold and they got some heat. Like, they figured out how to heat things up because it's weird that we just have so much parts of Russia nobody uses, nobody goes to it. That don't make sense.
It's not habitable for humans, like, unless you set up camps or something.
Not humans, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Who else it could be habitable for?
This goes into a book I read by Annie Jacobs. I think was her name.
Mm-hmm.
She did a lot of research on the Area 51 thing, and it was not like a UFO heavy book. It was like the building of the stealth planes and shit that they did post World War II, like in the Cold War regions. And what she talked about, there's a lot of weird shit with this book, first of all.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things she talked about was how, like, whenever they got the stealth planes, these were not like bombers or fighters. They were not equipped with weaponry. They were literally just equipped with cameras because we were trying to spy on Russia.
Mm-hmm.
These were planes that would go like so high up in the atmosphere that Russia wouldn't be able to detect them, and they could use the cameras to spy on what was going on down there.
Mm-hmm.
What they found out was they have like a lot of military bases in those Arctic regions.
That's what I've been trying to say.
Yeah.
Right. That's
that are like top secret, like Area 51 is.
Yeah, super secret, and they say it like it's uninhabitable because it's easy to say that, like it's easy to believe that how cold it is, right?
Yeah.
Well, it's 2020. I'm not gonna believe this shit, right? Like
you can figure it out.
There's some type of technology, and you can't like Russia's really high tech, right? You can't tell me all the leaders Russia has had. Like Putin ain't the only badass.
Russians are hard, dude.
They've had, and
Super
Russia's
hard.
also been ahead in a lot of different technology too.
Yeah.
So they definitely have had these different spots, and it's no telling what they've did with these spots.
100% agreed.
And Russia's like they got a different air about them. Like Americans kind of like is this weird social civil war we got. Russia is kind of like very like
everyone rides for Russia.
Oh yeah, we ride for Russia. We die for Russia. Like that's you know.
And the end of the book, that same book was very strange because like she talked to all these old military industrial guys. Like, first of all, what the military does to like keep a lot of their secrets safe is because the Freedom of Information Act is a thing now. Like, they'll tie up the businesses that deal with that kind of shit into private industry. They'll like go with the Department of Energy or whatever, like something that doesn't have to divulge its secrets to hide those things. A lot of these guys work for those places. These are ex-military guys that went to after they served their military time, they went to work on the base and so on and so forth. The Roswell thing that was weird was like you started hearing reports after the Roswell thing that they found bodies in the crash. There were bodies. Big head, big black eyes, small bodies. What these old military guys told this author was they were told from working on the base that the U.S. government not the U.S. government, the Russian government, the UFO that crashed supposedly was a Russian craft built by ex-Nazi scientists because they got their share after the war too. And the occupants, the bodies that they found, were children that Dr. Joseph Mengele had experimented on, the Nazi Angel of Death doctor guy. And he basically like put adult skull caps in children and adult eyes, like jammed them into their sockets to make it look like aliens to scare the United States. That was the whole incident. Oh, wow. And that's what they didn't want people
I'm thinking like when they got to pick, like they had all Nazi scientists line up like a game of dodgeball and they draft picked them. Like each country. I call Dr. such and such. No, I call Dr. whatever. You know? Like, I wonder how you feel that one scientist you laughed on the draft pick. Like, oh, like, I'm just the dumb one? Y'all couldn't... Like, who was the first draft pick? Like, who was, like, right there? First draft pick
First draft pick would have been Dr. Mengele as far as, like, genetics and biology goes. And then Werner von Braun for rocketry. See, and we got Dr. von Braun. Russia got Dr. Mengele. Yeah.
See, this is why, like, in media now, we talk about so much with Nazi scientists. This is why I tell you to watch certain things. Like, it brings up Nazi scientists. Like, in media now, it's everywhere. It's a thing in so many spots.
It was like a big chapter in history. We had a whole secret operation where we brought these motherfuckers in.
Multiple comic books use this as a pivotal point.
You want to know what's something that's creepy?
What?
With the shit we were talking about earlier with Germany having help from aliens. When Werner von Braun, who's their rocket scientist, was brought to America, he was made head over NASA. He's who got us to the moon. Like, that guy got us to the moon. Whenever people would interview him and ask him, like, who'd you have help with in Germany for inventing the rocket? You were so ahead of your time. He would just say them.
Oh.
He would just leave it at that. He would just say they helped us.
Oh. They got me. Them.
Like, I know he was probably just being an asshole and stirring the pot, but
I don't know. That's where you had to like dive and like all other stuff. Like, was he that type of person?
Yeah.
Yeah, like, was he really that type of person? Because, like, you would more think he was more straightforward because he wasn't that smart ass to Hitler.
Oh, for sure.
How did you create this? Them. And Hitler's like, you say them one more time. Say them.
No one was that big an asshole to Hitler.
Like, Hitler walked through, like, how did you find this out? You better give me direct answers, bro.
Mm-hmm. No, that's like a super creepy thing that, again, no one talks about. Like, he always did that. Anytime someone asked who Germany had help from, he just said them. They helped us.
That's wild. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think that some civilization or multiple civilizations is coming here. I don't know what their intent is, but I've become a believer that someone is coming here through just like seeing UFO videos over and over because everyone sees the same shit. That's my final thoughts.
Final thoughts is the psychic war will happen in 5 years.
Mark it down, 2025. The psychic war is going to happen. You know, that's like, I don't know, I don't want to say a lot, but I've heard some scientists believe that like that's the next stage in human evolution is the development of psychic abilities.
No, I don't think it's not the development of psychic abilities. It is we're now accepting it. Mm-hmm. As in, it's always been here, but now it's more normalized. Like, it's been a thing. It's now about to take the forefront again.
Yeah.
Because if you go back to biblical times, all these other civilizations, psychic ability is very normal. Mm-hmm. Prophets, mind reader, future sights, all these things are very normal. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I'll be weirding myself out, if I'm being honest.
There you go. Start accepting it. I've been trying to put y'all on. You've been denying it.
Like, I'll have a chorus in my head, right? A music chorus in my head. And I'll put on some random Pandora station. The first song that'll play is that.
You were synced up. A lot of things, like, a lot of, like, it. You can break it down in a scientific way with, like, a lot of waves. And you can kind of predict it with a lot of waves because it goes on mentally and things like that.
That's a different conversation for a different day. But
That is.
Is consciousness ours individually? Is it something that happens in your brain by a biochemical process?
We sync up more with life. We see it in sports all the time.
Or is consciousness some energy that exists ubiquitously in the universe and we're an antenna to it? And we like tap into it.
Holy shit, that's a great way to end.
Leave your thoughts in the bottom on consciousness and aliens.
Leave your nudes and the thoughts also in the bottom.
Leave your nudes in the comments.
No God.